Hello, everyone. It is now 3 o'clock, and welcome to our special post bracket drop March Mammal Madness webinar for educators, where we're going to help you get situated and oriented for kicking off the next March Mammal Madness and celebrating the Tree of Life. So it's great to see the number of you that are here, considering we were very last minute about sending out information about the webinar. As always, March Mammal Madness gets busier and better and more mad every year. And it just makes it all part of the fun. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Katie, who's got some excellent ways to get started. As we go through the webinar today, please feel free to post questions in the chat or use the Q&A feature. I and Katie are both like expert multitaskers who love looking at chat conversations while we're talking. We're really good at that. It could be a gift, it could be a weakness, maybe both. Anyway, feel free to ask questions. This webinar is for you. We can hear ourselves talk all the time. So please do ask if you have questions, reach out. And also, we always love hearing about how you use March Mammal Madness if you have been doing so in the past. So feel free to share your own thoughts, tips, tricks in the chat with your fellow attendees. So welcome, Katie.
Hi, thank you so much, Anali, for the introduction, and thank you everybody for attending today. As you know, March Mammal Madness information, most of it went live on Thursday last week, quite late in the day. We are very delighted, though. We did not crash the ASU Library server, so that is better than 3 years ago. And we did not accidentally post our insider spreadsheet publicly for everybody to start being in and editing. So that is an improvement over 2024. You know, maybe doing things a little bit slower has some benefits. But as you know, we are well into the preseason. You've had access to the tournament bracket, and you should, if you are an educator and signed up for materials, you should have received an email from us giving you information about how to access and use the educator materials. As per always, everything that we put together for March Mammal Madness is a free or open educational resource. We provide all of it to you. If ever you see somebody selling stuff about March Mammal Madness, please let us know, because that is not us, and we really do this as a gift to our broader community. As of 8 a.m. this morning, which was the last time I checked, over 7,800 educators had signed up to use March Mammal Madness with their learners, and they told us that they were going to share it with 725,000 learners. So that is right where we were at this time last year. We expect more people. I'm getting hundreds of requests every day. Patches of information is going out. If you signed up and you haven't gotten an email from me, please let me know in the chat. You should be, which means that we need to get that sorted. Everything that is available is on the libguide currently. And maybe Annalie can drop the players portal and the educators portal. I know we have a lot of players in the general public, and I won't ignore you entirely this webinar. We will come back to talking more broadly about the tournament. But with just regarding a few couple things about the educators, the thing that's really nice about being signed up for materials is that we do send out emails if ever there's a patch that needs to be provided, or some new materials that we think would be useful, or things that develop during the tournament. It's our way of getting stuff out, pushed to you very quickly. As Annalie can attest, I barely sleep during the tournament, and am highly responsive to addressing anything that comes up as quickly as I possibly can. And so that is, that is one of the best parts about being signed up as an educator, is that you'll get materials that we deem essential, messaged to you lickety-split. So this, of course, is our 13th tournament. So a lot of things are running like clockwork, and a lot of things still feel like Alice in Wonderland White Rabbit. And so what you should be able to find is the bracket. We've now implemented a bracket guide, which provides all of the essential information for understanding the rules of the game universe of March Mammal Madness, how we estimate the probabilities of outcomes, how we determine those outcomes, how we craft the stories of the encounters, how we provide information to you, the locations and habitats of where the battles occur. And really this has been a growing phenomenon for the now 13 tournaments. It's been happening since 2013. So at that point, all right, so we've got our first set of comments and questions coming in. So let's get those addressed first. So John, you signed up, but you have not seen an email. I'm grabbing your email right now and we'll send out everything that we've had so far to you after we are done with this webinar. Obviously, I wish I was good enough to do it during, but I am not quite that skilled. Anything else in the Q&A? Nope. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know, John. I'm going to share my screen and just walk folks through the ASU LibGuide because I think that it can be really useful to understand why we have it organized the way we are. If you go to the LibGuide, you're going to land at this page. It's going to be a little bit dynamic. Things do get posted and then taken down as the tournament moves along, like acts of a play. Like I think it's useful to think of it as like a set that we put stuff forward and then pull it back when it is not necessarily being used at that time. And so what we would really encourage you to do, as it says here, is identify as a player, learner, or educator, and then you can come over here and you can click the portal specific to you. We're going to do the players one first. So players, this takes you to where you can get your bracket and bracket guide. If you don't want to read the 22 pages of magazine bracket guide that I laboriously created for you, that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You can read the text-only version that's really specific about the rules of the MMM game universe. And we have a link to all the brackets without the guide. These are going to include English and Spanish, a Latin binomial bracket, so you're definitely researching the correct species or subspecies for the tournament. We have some jumbo versions that are good for our youngest learners or people that want to write in bigger ways. And there's just a lot of different brackets that are back there. There's a screen reader bracket, things like that. So we have materials to get hyped. So for players in the general public, we provide you some curated information about the combatants. Of course, we'd want you to do your own research out in the world, but we do recognize that sometimes people want a shortcut. So we have given you that shortcut in both English and Spanish. We have given you a list of all the animal names so that you can easily go searching for it. There's logos and hype materials. We have a Spotify playlist, which I've now published to my Spotify account, so we shouldn't get shut down this year by Spotify. We have an action-packed epic trailer. We have a more gentle trailer for people that are want something a little gentler right now. We have some highlight reels. We've got a number of different things. We have the calendar. We do provide you some specific resources that we've vetted that we think are good places to do research about the species if you want to do your own research. And there's more materials that give you history, context, and information about March Mammal Madness. Illustration and image resources. LibGuides are really amazing in how much they allow you to curate potential things that people might want to use. There is an online bracket scorer, several options. You can read about their different strengths and what they let you do. And then if you obviously have fallen in love with animal research, here are some really great wildlife animal research projects that we highly recommend. Then if you want to keep the learning going after the tournament's over, there are more science resources and other animal games we love. So all of that is really just a massive set of resources for players in the general public. Now, if you are an educator, we have more things for you. You have the same kind of set of brackets and bracket zone. You have an educator starter pack. This is where we provide resources that are specifically intended to be used in the classroom or in the learning environment with your learners, either formal or informal settings. So this is a slide deck for introducing the tournament to your learners. Research, we give you a spreadsheet that includes the recommended research links for middle schoolers and a separate one middle schoolers and high schoolers, and another one for high schoolers and college, depending on the levels. We've got lesson plans. We've got info slides. We've got research templates. We've got trading cards. We've got a lot of things that we've known that educators have requested in the past. Here we have the epic trailer and the gentle trailer already preloaded for you. Gentle trailer may work better with our youngest, littlest, most sensitive learners. There's an expansion pack that allows you, we know a lot of teachers are playing in school-wide competitions where social studies, arts, and English language teachers are getting involved in the fun. We've created lesson plans for those classrooms that tie into March Mammal Madness. We have some expansion options for life sciences, and then we link. This year, we're very excited. The National Center for Science Education is a co-sponsor of the tournament, and they have a really cool Nature's Doppelgangers lesson plan. And the Arizona Game and Fish Department has also put together some specific lesson plans tied into March Mammal Madness. So there's lots of really cool resources. We have a set of resources translated into Spanish. We have a lot of hype materials, so logos and things that you can use to decorate your classroom or wherever you're playing. Again, the playlist. We have certificates we've created for you to recognize students that are doing really great research, students that are doing really cool artwork, students that are really, really, really just coming and showing just great enthusiasm for the tournament. There's collector trading cards. I know a lot of educators use these as rewards and prizes for students. We have the compendium of the 12th Animal March Mammal Madness Read All About It. This is 225-page book that is now free. It's a PDF in the ASU Library. You can download it, and it includes a ton of the art installations created by teachers and learners from the 2024 tournament. So there's like 25 pages of artwork that we've included in that compendium. There's some videos about going inside the March Mammal tournament and ways to maximize the educational impact. The bracket scores as on the players page. One of the things that we know is beloved in the tournament is there is a crowdsourced educator resources education form. Sorry, that's a really redundant title. These are classroom resources created by other educators that they've uploaded to share with all of the teachers that are using March Mammal Madness. So you go to the form to input anything that you've created that you want to share, and then you go to the database if you would like to search other resources that other teachers are making. There's lots of really, really neat in there. And actually, the last time I checked, which again was this morning, there was over 30 things submitted. So we're seeing just a lot of attention to that. And then there's some more additional materials that may be useful for educators that have to do with broader areas of science as well. Now, just as an example, I don't think we have any learners necessarily in our webinar today, but just to give an idea to educators of what's inside the learners portal and to recommend how you direct your students to there, when they go to the learners portal, they can choose if they are a college student, a high school student, a middle school student, and an elementary school student. We do that because we've curated resources specific to these different grade levels that are age-appropriate learning materials. So you'll see very different resources for the elementary school students versus the college students. And this way, they get to just focus on stuff that's tailored and curated for them. So you can, for those of you that are teaching, let's say, middle school, for example, you can just share the middle school link directly on your classroom website or your page to send your students directly there. And we will not those websites are really designed for doing research ahead of the tournament, so they will stay very, very static during this preseason period, so as to not stress you out and change things radically. Once we get to March 10th, the wild card battle, the tournament results page is where a lot of the action is going to be in the tournament. So as the results come in, right? Like we aren't actually writing all that stuff right now. Once the tournament begins, we'll have the wild card event on Blue Sky on March 10th. And following that, we will update the results page with those outcomes. So we'll have sport style summaries in the evening magazine. We'll have the links to rundown animated videos in time for your class teaching the next day. We'll have an all the details text version. We'll have the play-by-play, and then at the very bottom, we'll have just an update on the winners. Of course, I know nobody wants to just find out the winners. They want to learn all the science that went into the winning, so nobody needs that bottom link, but it is there for anyone that wants to skip past learning. All right, at this point, I'm going to take a break from sharing and then switch over to the chat and see what questions have come in. Annalie, anything that you think I need to address?
Nothing so far. We did have a question in the Q&A about what kind of resources are available for elementary school students, and you got right to that. So I don't think we need to go back to it.
I would say go and check out educators. You should really check out the pages that we have for the learners. We've tried to not clutter up your page by replicating them there, but there's pages on like how to draw some of the animals for, littlest learners so they can practice drawing, or we have some of the more kid-friendly and safe websites for learning about animals. And so those are the kinds of resources that are there, and they get more sophisticated as you go up in educational years, to the point where we're really appreciative of Oxford University Press. I finally got things together well enough that we reverse engineered a lot of the combatants this year, that they have a mammalian species entry in the Oxford University Press Library of Journals. And so these are articles that are written by mammalogists. It's one of the flagship journals of the American Society of Mammalogists. And those publications have very specific information about the physical characteristics of animals, of the mammals, their environment, their reproduction, their behavior, and really delve deeply into the very content that we showcase in March Mammal Madness. So that Oxford University Press special collection is made free for players of the tournament. They offer it free. They curate a page for it for us. We link out to it. And those articles are going to be really perfect for a college learner or an advanced placement high school biology environmental science learner. So we have it linked from both the high school and the college page. I think we even put it in there for middle schoolers. We drop it down a little bit lower. It's behind some of our more user-friendly general knowledge language sorts of pages. In those other, in middle school and high school, we really also recommend the Animal Diversity Web. We've worked really hard to make sure almost all of our combatants have pages in one or the other places, or both. And then in the spreadsheet for educators, where we say reliable resources for research, for any animal, or I guess we have some plants and a bacterium and a fungi, for any of the combatants that don't have an Animal Diversity Web website or for anybody that doesn't have an Animal Diversity Web entry, we've provided an alternative accessible source of information for learners. So that's in the spreadsheet in the educator materials, and you can use that to steer your students in the correct way. And then for two of the combatants this year, there's just really no good place to find out information about the particular combatant species. So we have provided that in the combatant info slides, even in the research template. Don't make them go study cyanobacteria, the particular species, or the mycorrhizal, which I know I'm just butchering that pronunciation, the fungi. Just, we give you the key information, don't make them research it. These are really just for them to learn about the tree of life. We wouldn't anticipate that either of those species they're a 15th and a 16th seed. So we don't necessarily anticipate them to be very battle ready come March.
I think it's always a great idea to, the combatant info slides is really one of the most helpful resources in just getting started and kind of seeing the sorts of things that that learners or players, I use it as a player, right? I don't have a lot of time to do the research, but it's great as a player to go through, I know, the librarian not doing all the research, so sorry. But there's always useful information in those slides. And like we saw last year, sometimes really important clues that might potentially
there's no
help
clues this year.
out. You say there's no clues.
There's no clues. We didn't have to pre-announce any known weaknesses because there was going to be a catastrophic upset that infuriated everyone and made my email and social media a shambles for 24 hours. Not saying there aren't upsets. There's just not upsets of quite that magnitude of bee versus elephant last year. I will say that the nice thing about the combatant info slides, among the things that Annalie just shared, is it includes an image of the animal, but also a silhouette of the animal next to human figures, both combinations of adults and kids. And this is really, really useful in helping kids understand the relative sizes of the different species. Some of our littlest learners will, of course, still adore. They will adore the cutest animals and pick them to go deep in their tournament. And this is one of the many reasons we have the busted bracketeers. I see there's a question in there about the educator guide so what you do is you'd click to go to the database, and it will be in the database for the crowdsourced resources. So the first link inside that box is to submit resources, and the second link inside that box is to view the resources. So one takes you to the form to submit, and the other one takes you to the database. So click the database.
So Katie, we have a few questions in the Q&A. So Jennifer asks, are there any lessons that link into basic cell biology?
There are not currently any lessons that link into basic cell biology, in part because we have most all of our combatants are multicellular species, and we're looking at them at kind of a higher levels of organization. Occasionally, some things about cell physiology will come up, but it's not always a guarantee. So an example of this would be the way that the saline pumps works in octopus when they are removed from salt water and put into fresh water can have catastrophic collapse of their tissues, turning them into a gelatinous goo. But we don't necessarily, that was many years ago, although people still bring it up quite consistently today. So we don't have any lesson plans that are specifically tailored to cellular processes. Good question. I have a long list of dream lesson plans that we have not yet had a chance to make manifest, but thank you for planting that seed.
Well, and that's an excellent segue, your example, because Nikki would like us to pronounce Durgovich. Because she wants to make sure that she's not, they want to make sure they're not mispronouncing things.
Yeah, so that is Lara Durgovich, who was the narrator on several several of the catastrophically horrible battles, to the point where it now is a verb. A species can get Durgeviched, meaning that they have some ignoble, sad demise in the tournament. Although I still particularly love when the little was it a French bulldog? It was some little dog with a retracted snoot because of, intensive artificial breeding, uh, went to eat a poisonous bird and spit it out and fell backwards out of the tree. And its eyeball popped out because of the force to the back of its head, which has some really amazing citations. Yeah, so there's many animals can get Durgeviched in the course of the tournament, but it's been named after Lara specifically because of the octopus battle encounter. Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you.
I feel that Lynn in the Q&A is setting us up for an excellent discussion about talking about the themes for this year. What is making our Tree of Life edition different or unique or special from our past March Mammal Madness?
Yeah, that's great. So so it's really by celebrating the Tree of Life, we have created divisions that specifically have to do with the ways in which evolution occurs, and that when species change significantly across time, it is in large part, not entirely, but in large part, because conditions are changing such that there's selection favoring some part of the variation within the population, such that those individuals leave more offspring behind in the next generation. And this causes this kind of directional selection. There's also stabilizing selection, and there's disruptive selection. And of course, there's other processes that aren't selection, like genetic drift. But in general, the tournament is designed to basically highlight different kinds of branches of an evolutionary tree, or different ways in which genetics play a role in how species look, for example. So this is all really to celebrate our genetics team and celebrate their 10th tournament. So the only ones is a division of species that are on lonely branches on the evolutionary tree, because they are the only or last living species of their genus. So they don't have any immediate cousins within their genus. So you have to go out to the suborder or the order for them to have, or tribe if we're talking about hoofed mammals in Africa. Oh, man, the phylogeny of hoofed mammals is really tricky. And I digress. So the only ones are just kind of these sort of, these lonely branches, and what makes them different than any of the other species within their order. We have, along those same lines, an even more extreme case of that in ways is the roots and relics species with a T. It is spelled correct on the bracket, roots and relics. This is a delightful opportunity for people to check their closest dictionary to understand that these are different terms. They mean slightly different things. And relics are species that have that retain a lot of very, very ancient adaptations that have not changed significantly in many millions of years. Or they are species that were once quite plentiful, or from a group of organisms that were quite dominant in the environment, but are no longer so primary, and tend to have kind of retracted into sort of lost remnant populations. So an example of that, of course, is the ginkgo biloba, which I know everybody's having a great time thinking about how a giant tree is going to battle in the tournament. You're welcome. And then we have, so roots and relics, same different, is a really, 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 really fun division, because here we're talking about animals that are on very, very different branches of the evolutionary tree, but look alike in at least one way because they've been shaped to solve the same kind of problem. So I think one of my favorite examples of this, of course, is the gliders. So the tournament features 5 gliders. You've got a marsupial glider, you've got a colugo, which is its own kind of thing glider, you have a rodent glider, and then you have a snake glider and a frog glider. And these are all species that have adaptations to glide from tree to tree in the forest canopy. Obviously, they are very distantly related, some more distantly related than others. And it gives us a chance to talk about how natural selection is going to favor mutations that solve problems in similar ways, even in very, very different species. And then our last division is the black and white division. And these are species that are monochromatic in shades of gray from snowy to sable. And gives us a chance to talk about the genes that underlie coat coloration, while also talking about why animals might be favored to be these black and white colors. And there's some really good evolutionary adaptive tree of life stories around that. And we get to make the joke of, they're black and white, but who becomes red all over, as we make allusions to carnage, which near as I can tell is never carnagey enough for the bloodthirsty spectators in this March Mammal Madness Coliseum. So. All right. What other questions are coming up for people? Or, you're welcome, Lynn. Or should we take a break from questions from the crowd for Annalie and I to do our... Did somebody forget to prepare their speed questions?
No.
Okay, I will take a couple more questions from the audience while Annalie turns off her video camera for no particular reason to come up with her speed questions. All right. Okay. So Annalie Perry's answered the questions about where to find stuff in the educator guide. All right, links, yeah. All right, so there's a couple answers there. Thanks everybody for being with us today. It's this, I love this period between when the bracket drops and when the tournament starts, because it feels very festival-like to me, without all the stress of the tournament actually happening. All right. All right, no open questions. All right. So have people are, oh, Annalie's back. All right, Annalie's back with her comprehensively considered, thoughtful questions. I'm gonna go first because I was ready first.
Yeah, how many questions are we doing, Katie?
5, our traditional 5.
Right. 5.
All right. Annalie and audience members, you can also feel free to answer this question in the chat if you would like. It's a question for everyone. Annalie, what March Mammal Madness outcome made you angriest?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think, okay, so this is a few years ago, and for the audience, all of the archives from previous tournaments are on the LibGuide. So if you were like, oh, I don't remember what year this was, I think 2018, 2019, Harbor Porpoise. I had Harbor Porpoise as my champion, and I knew, like, I don't always pick. I know Katie's giving me the look. I don't always pick who's definitely gonna win. Sometimes I like to go, I mean, they were like a 5th or 6th seed. It wasn't terrible. They got hit by a boat, and I was not happy about that. That was the one that made me most angry. But last year I also was not pleased because I had sperm whale. Like, I
Oh,
thought I had a pretty solid champion
yeah.
choice.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah.
We gave sperm whale, I think, like an 80% chance of defeating the squid in the elite trait is when they met, and we gave Yeah, sperm whale eat squid, right? Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, squid can sometimes get away from a sperm whale, but they still have to flee the field of battle. So like we were like, yeah, done. And then yeah, the random number generator did not agree with any of us, and made it the squid is the winner, which gave us the first ever fleeing onto the scene of battle scenario through the portal, so that we could showcase how sperm whales' #1 mortality cause is ship strike. So that
Yeah.
was an opportunity to really talk about the sources of mortality. And what was really interesting is the week of that battle, the Coast Guard had actually initiated, and they were piloting new techniques for trying to prevent whale strike by ships. So we were able, like this is the magic of March Mammal Madness. Like honestly, there's all sorts of cool science that happens to drop that's relevant for the tournament right as the tournament is happening. So we're always really excited when we can do those kind of real world, like right now tie-ins. Yeah,
Yeah.
good answer. Okay, #2, Annalie, what is your dream combatant for MMM?
Oh, my dream combatant. I don't know. I'm I'm
I mean,
like, because
do we?
every year is like, and this is why I say, for the audience, right? Katie's always asked me, who'd you like to see in March Mammal Madness? I'm like, I love them all. Like, I'm not a mammologist. I've I haven't taken biology since
Yeah, let's do the math. That's
like high,
that's fun.
maybe. No, I'm like, did I even take it biology ever? I don't, I mean, no. But but I love our world. I love the natural world. I love all of the creatures in it. And I'm sorry, this is like a terrible answer to the question because every year I learn about new animals, new creatures, new plants, um, ones that existed.
Everybody's favorite combatant. They love
I
it when
mean,
they're plants.
that I didn't think I would ever become emotionally attached to a dandelion, and yet I did.
Yeah.
And so
That's
it
the
was
magic of story, I think, more
right,
so than the magic of a dandelion.
right. Well,
All
yes.
right.
So every year I love who we get. I mean, I can't think of because I'm still haven't figured out all of the animals that we have this year. I'm still trying. I'm like, what is it, Kaluga? I gotta look that. I haven't finished my research.
Fair, fair. I mean, the bracket, we've got time. We've got time. All right,
Right.
#3. If you weren't a librarian, what would you be?
Oh, hmm. I mean, if we go down the practical route or the like, what I went to college to be a musician and become a rock star. So that was kind of where I was hoping to go. But then I realized that I like having a steady paycheck. And I'm not like super talented. So,
I don't believe.
um,
I
there's,
don't like late nights. I get,
well, there's that too.
I get so excited when rock stars get less famous and they end up on the country, like the county fair circuit or the state fair
Yeah.
circuit. And I'm like, excellent, you start at 7. That's my favorite time to start a music show.
I like matinees.
Yeah,
And
you
so,
should do any brunch concerts. All right, sorry.
but a potential alternative though was I took geology as my science requirement. I'm sorry. But I loved it. Like again, I love learning about our planet. I think our world is just so interesting. And I really liked geology and the geology 101 instructor who I don't think he's still at ASU, but he was like, have you thought about being a geologist? Because I got like 100% in the class. I loved it. And I was like, no, but I
I'm
always
gonna get
have thought
different
about
kind of
it
rock
since.
star.
Yeah, different kind of rock star.
Fantastic. All right.
Exactly.
Question #4. What book greatly impacted you as an adolescent?
I really loved Madeline Langle's young adult series that begins with Vicky Austin, Meet the Austins. It has Vicky Austin. And there's kind of some interesting interweaving. There's great science, there's great fantasy, like science and fantasy mixed in there. And so those books were the right age. Like they were right for me at that age. And it was a good
Nice,
series.
nice, nice. All right. Final question. Biggest bucket list travel trip? What's your
Oh,
that you haven't done yet?
oh yeah. I want to go to New Zealand.
Mm, very cool.
I
Very cool.
mean, so I'm also a Lord of the Rings
Yeah, I was
fan.
about to be like, is this a LOTR thing
A,
or
a little bit, but it's, yeah,
stop one, Hobbiton?
yes. But those
Fantastic.
mountains are incredible. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. All right. So those are my 5 questions. Excellent answers all. And
Okay.
I look forward to my questions.
Yes, they're very, very deeply thought out.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, so Katie, when you're not playing March Mammal Madness, what is your favorite game to play?
Oh, yeah. Oh. I really like the game Cranium. When I'm doing like kind of like I really like the game Cranium because it lets everybody play to their strengths. And so I like it as an inclusive game, right? So like visual thinkers or people that are word nerds or people that are really, star performers. Like I like that game because there's parts that can appeal to everyone. Um so like that's kind of my favorite like family game. Um I used to in grad school we used to play Heroescape a lot, which was really fun. Kind of a three-dimensional world, not quite as intense as like some of the three-dimensional world games that you can play tabletop. So that was really fun. And I like card games. I like card games, and I get a little competitive though, shockingly.
No.
Shockingly. um and not that I get like mean or grumpy if I'm not winning, but I just get a little obnoxiously delighted when I'm doing well. But yeah, I also I like kind of I like playing imaginary games. So like this last summer with my little cousins, I bought them these like really kick-ass like foam shields and swords. And we were at my mom's farm and we played hide and seek and battle. And so that was a like I really like those kinds of, I maybe submerged myself in a pond and like emerged out of it to, to surprise attack them. And yeah, so that was really those are the kinds of games I like to play. It's fun.
Great. Thank you. Um, when oh geez, I did have a question. Where did it go? Okay. So, I wanted to ask about when you were in school in like elementary. Um, we all go through different kind of ideas about what we want to be when we grow up. And what was your earliest thought of like what you first thought you were going to be when you grew up?
So the first thing I can remember actively wanting to be was in 6th grade. Like my parents could probably tell you, my mom could probably tell you like things that I had talked about, but like the first thing I remember wanting to be was I wanted to be a professor of constitutional law, as children do. I don't like, I really like the ACLU, but I didn't want to be a lawyer for the ACLU. I was like, I would like to teach constitutional law. I mean, like that was like when I was 11, I asked my parents for like Poor Richard's Almanac for my birthday gift, right? Like I would like these gathered sayings by Benjamin Franklin. It's a weird kid. I was a weird kid. Um, but like my parents, like, when you're little, you don't necessarily know all the different kinds of careers you can be. And so, and my folks, we grew up in like pretty rural Ohio. So like we weren't doing a lot of national parks or I was out in the woods building forts, and I was pretty sure that wasn't a career option at the time. So I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it when I was a little kid. I'd have to ask my mom if I had said anything to her. I know I was really interested in paleontology when I was a little kid. Like specific, like not the like dinosaur thing, but my mom tells a story about how when I was like 4 years old, I was watching PBS, and I was like, "Mom, when they take dinosaur fossils out of the ground, what do they put on the fossils to protect them when they're no longer encased in rock?" And my mom's like, "I don't know." And I was like, well, maybe we can go to the library and they'll have a book that will tell me. My mom's like, okay. So my mom was always really good about taking me to the library and asking the librarians for help finding books that would tell me stuff about the world. So but I don't remember ever like actively wanting to be a paleontologist. I just remember being interested in the profession of paleontology in terms of like the process of protecting fossils when they were being excavated. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for
Yeah,
that
good.
question.
So, what is a book that you have read that made you laugh out loud? Like it was so funny.
Daisy Faye and the Miracle Man by Fannie Flagg.
Okay, what's that again? I gotta write it down.
It's Daisy Faye and the Miracle
Daisy Faye.
Man by
Okay,
Fannie Flagg. So that's the same author that did Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. And but I remember reading Daisy Faye and the Miracle Man and laughing uproariously out loud. And I remember thinking, this is a phenomenal book. It's making me laugh.
awesome.
I read that. I read that in my adolescence. It was really a delightful book. It's it's a really wonderful book because you see the world through the eyes of a young girl. So it's things that happen to her as she's growing up, and the way she constructs her understanding of the world. And then she grows up in the book, and then you are with her as she has epiphanies about her past memories of her childhood, and how like so you're there with her as she realizes that how she had constructed the world was incorrect and what it really is. And so you get this really wonderful, and the stories are hilarious, like her the kinds of adventures and experiences she has really resonated with me, even though she's from the Gulf Coast. It it was she had some pretty cool adventures, and it's neat to see the way in which, as we learn more about our world and our and the people that we interact with, how we can, how our memories will change across time as our understanding deepens. And I thought that was a really wonderful element to a book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, I'll ask a quick question, then we'll do one more, but we
Yeah.
so what is your favorite font? Like we all have strong feelings. You focus a lot on graphic design, especially for our
Yeah. I think my favorite one is Garamond, which I know is not like a very fancy one. There's something about it that just feels um like it's like a quirky Times New Roman, but like can still like slide in as a professional font. So like I think of it as, kind of I like Garamond. Um, I don't I the only thing I actively dislike is Calibri, and I'm not really entirely sure why. And sometimes I like to use Comic Sans just to annoy other people because I know it's so, hated. So like I'll routinely use it as like slide titles just to like annoy people that I know get so worked up about it. But yeah, Garamond's my favorite. Interest, yeah.
Good font. Last question. What is the March Mammal Madness anecdote that somebody has sent you that made you feel like the most rewarded for the work that you're doing?
That's a really great question. And I would say that I would say that there's and I'm gonna be there's three anecdotes. I have three anecdotes. And I'm gonna try and tell them in a way that gives them enough story power that they don't out any individuals. So one story that I get really often, like repeatedly, like I get it repeatedly, is how wonderful March Mammal Madness is for special education learners. So that, it helps, because there's so many different battles and so many different outcomes, like you win some, you lose some, and it really helps kids not think in all or none sorts of ways. And so it helps with emotion regulation and focusing on what you get right and not getting worked up about what you get wrong. And that is a lesson you can carry forward in life. And so like that one always just like that one hit, or the ways in which different kinds of thinkers can, it evens the playing field. And so sometimes the highest scores in a classroom are special ed learners, and like teachers talk about the way that that just makes their confidence and self-esteem blossom, and that they get so excited about it, it opens up opportunities for them to help other kids learn about it like the next year. And so then they get to like have this, it helps them be somebody who's a helper and not just someone who's being helped. And that, sorry, that gets to me every time. Um, I got a letter one time from a kid whose mom was really sick, from an and I got it from a teacher, and it was about a kid whose mom was really sick. And there was another kid in his classroom whose mom was also really sick, and they both really bonded over March Mammal Madness together. And one of the kids made puppets of the character of the combatant species, and the kid was able to and gave it to the other kid, and he brought it home and could talk to his mom about the animals and their behaviors with this little puppet. And that one really got to me. Um, and then one of the ones that I got was from the dean of a university. And it was after the championship battle of 2022. So the first two are the ones that like just warm my heart and why I keep going year after year. So like those are the ones that make it seem like it matters. The one letter that made me feel the most seen myself as a person was, it was from a dean of a university, and he wrote to me after the lionesses defeated the orca in the kelp forest in the final championship battle of 2022, which was a very contentious battle that people were very worked up about. And it was very, very hard to write to make it exciting and plausible and dramatic and last, right? Which you need your championship battle to do. And it was really hard, right? Because there was an improbable outcome in this like, ridiculous setting. And you had to have, it just was it was a really hard battle, right? I know you remember how hard it was because I was agonizing about it for weeks and weeks. And so this dean of this university wrote to me, and he was like, I just want to tell you how fantastic March Mammal Madness is. We had a full discussion of it at dinner last night, and we talked about the pros and cons of the lionesses, the pros and cons of the orca, and we, really decided that it was going to come down to where the battle took place. And I have to tell you, like, how amazing it was that you brought all this science together to tell a story for an outcome in a habitat where I thought the conclusion, it was a foregone conclusion. And I really appreciated that letter. because because sometimes I think we do such a good job with March Mammal Madness that people don't realize how hard of work it is. Like like the hours and hours and hours of research and story arc building and storytelling and character development and thinking through all those pieces to get to that culminating event every year. It's a huge amount of work. And I had gotten a lot of really angry messages that day of people that were really angry about the outcome. And I can, tell myself like, oh, they're angry about it because they care, right? Like they're angry because they're invested. Like an angry letter is just as successful as a complimentary letter, right? Like because it means that they care. But it still hurts sometimes, right? Because we're all people. And so like getting that letter that basically saw what we build every year and what it takes and recognize that meant a lot. So we don't that's not what keeps me going, but that was one of the letters that I got that I just really helped me feel seen. But the first two stories that I get, not the puppet one. The puppet one was obviously a very specific individual story, but the one about special ed learners and what it can mean to them. Like that's the one that every time I'm like, you know, think about like maybe it's time to retire the tournament. Like I think about those learners and those stories and those experiences and the magic of them and what it would mean if those opportunities weren't there. And then I quickly move on from any idea of retirement. So yeah, thank you for those questions, Annalie. And so, yeah, thank you everybody for hanging out while we ask those questions. I know Annalie has kid pickup responsibilities. And so if people don't have anything more that they specifically want us to cover, we can kind of wrap this up now at the top of the hour and let everybody get on with their evenings. But if people do have continued questions that they want, I'm happy to stay a bit longer with you and work through those. Um, All right. I will mention Rebecca Kennedy. Thank you for that comment about the battle that made you angriest from last year. The winner left the field of battle. That was, of course, probably 20 of the battles last year. I assure you, each one of them made somebody unhappy. Even though an animal fleeing the field of battle is probably the most scientifically accurate outcome we have in March Mammal Madness, I do assure you there is always going to be carnage. But we will talk a lot about why animals, the animals come with their judgment and their behavioral traits for de-escalating conflict and only fighting when it really matters. So this is a tournament of science. And we try and keep it exciting, but we also will feature some accuracy as to the extent that we deem absolutely responsible. I guess is how I would phrase that. Responsible, entertaining science. Everyone's favorite. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you for sharing it with your learners. Thank you for coming back and playing year after year. I think having seen almost half the battles have been drafted at this juncture, and they are wicked amazing. I think you guys are in for a really exciting year. And we're really looking forward to everything that's going to unfold in coming weeks. So thank you for being a part of the community and part of that magic as a player, as a learner, as an educator, whoever you are. We're happy you're here. We welcome you amongst all of what is happening. And if you have stuff that you have questions about or anything that wasn't addressed, of course, feel free to message me. I will try and answer it as quickly as possible.
And also, we did record the webinar, and so we will be posting it on the libguide. After we go through the transcriptions, we have definitely learned that we have an auto transcriber, and it does okay, but it requires a lot of cleanup. And so we have some of our colleagues who volunteer to do that for us, but it does take a little bit of time. So be patient.
All the marshmallow madnesses into March Mammal Madnesses. And I have a list. So that poor auto captioning device is like, we don't know what she's saying. She's talking like Sylvester the cat. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your February, and we will see you getting really active come March.
Hi, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye, Annalie. Thank you.
Bye, Katie.